Hi, and welcome to one of my video tutorials for technology and project-based learning. My name is Harry Blathervan. This video, and the rest of the video series that I'm creating, are a component for my Master's of Education final portfolio at Lakehead University. In my portfolio, I've developed a rationale for the integration of technology into project-based learning. And each video that I've created in this series highlights or showcases a certain technology and how these technologies can be used in the 8 essentials of project-based learning, and then also how these technologies support my rationale points. In this video, we'll be taking a look at using an interactive whiteboard. In this case, I'm using a smartboard. And some of you may have different types of interactive whiteboards. But I'm using a smartboard to demonstrate screen capturing. Screen capturing can then be used for a flipped lesson, or as Salman Khan calls it, the flipped classroom. In the rationale for using technology in PBL, there are two elements that tie in closely with this video and this idea. And those elements are the technology is needed to support the learner. So we want to be able to support the learner in project-based learning. And also the technology is needed to help the teacher structure and manage project-based learning. What I like about mostly with using the flipped lesson is how it can help me manage and structure my lessons. We should probably first of all talk about why we might want to flip a lesson or flip a class or flip a unit or flip our whole course. Some of the big reasons that we do this are that it provides our students have constant access to their notes, to the actual lesson, and to their teacher providing them the actual lesson. Another reason why we should use a flipped lesson is it can be viewed at any time. They can also view it at their own pace. In my classroom when we use it, and we sometimes use it in the class, so not even necessarily as a homework piece or outside of our classroom, but I have some students that can watch the video right away and fill in a worksheet. I have some students that may want to pause it, may want to think about the concepts that we've talked about. Or other students will fast forward to it just so they can fill it in because they perhaps already get this concept. I also like it because it's interactive. And my students are actually viewing a video that is related directly to their math, but there is some interaction there. And again, the fact that the students can review. So we talked about viewing it at your own pace and or any time or any location. But I also want my students to be able to review things. Here's my smartboard. This whole thing is my smart notebook. And as I look at my smart notebook, and different boards will have something similar. Perhaps you have a Mimeo board or a Promethean board. You will have a similar piece to it. What I like about the smart one, or the smart notebook, is that I can plug in my headset, plug in my microphone, and I can record a video. Anything that I say, anything that I draw, any of the files that I open, or the things that I touch on my board, my students will see them. It gets recorded into a video. Now I first of all want to show you where that piece actually is. I'm actually not sure whether you're going to see this piece down here on the screen. However, this is my recording window. Now I can't stop it, but I can show you where I can find it. If I go to Programs, this is under Smart Technologies, it's in my Smart Tools. And I have, if you look at the list about midway, I have something called a recorder. And the recorder brings up a little window that allows me to record, press record, and I start my lesson. Whatever I start to say, whatever I start to do, gets captured into my video. Well, how do I use it in my classroom? How can we use this to help our students? How do we use this to help structure our lessons? Let me open up another page here. This would be a lesson that I have for my grade 9 mathematics class. In Unit 2, we looked at slopes and equations, and here we looked at special cases. So we've already done a little bit of it. This is the exact handout that my students have. On their handout, they have the exact same blanks, they have the exact same spaces, the exact same graphs and words. That part for me became key. The first time I tried to use it, I created a different looking presentation or different looking video from what they had in front of them on their sheet. That didn't work so well. It wasn't a very good structure. I was providing them some structure and helping them manage some of their learning, but I wasn't able to provide them enough structure to help them manage. They might be thinking, this looks like a regular math sheet. Yes, it is. This is still a part of project-based learning. This is the part of project-based learning where we still need to provide them the structure of their learning, and this might be one of the cases where they need to learn a concept and we do what looks like a very traditional lesson within a project. So what I would do with my students, I'm going to give you just a little mini lesson here, and I'll talk about it in a moment. We're looking here at parallel lines. So parallel lines, if we use a straight edge, we're going to graph both these equations, and I often use the example of railroad tracks. Even though they're not two parallel lines, they never get any closer or farther away from each other. If they did, the train would crash. These parallel lines go on forever, but the distance between these two lines remains the same. When we graph them, we have to look at these two lines and say, okay, what's the same about them and what's different? I'm going to look at these two lines and say, what is my y-intercept? Well, we know that in a line, which we looked at the other day with y equals mx plus b, that b is our y-intercept. So b is where our equation crosses the y-axis. So we have 0, because x is always 0 where it crosses. And in this part here is my y-intercept. So 0 and 2. My slope, and if we remember from the other day, our slope is whatever number is in front of the x. In this case, we have a 5, so our slope is 5. Looking at our next line, the equation is y equals 5x minus 1. Well, it looks actually like our slope is the same here, so I'm going to put down a 5. We know that 0 is always the x value of my y-intercept, and here we have a negative 1 for the y-intercept point. I'm going to describe the relationship between these two, but first of all, I want to try to graph these. We have a point, we have 0 and 2. We know that our slope is 5, meaning it's going to go up 5 and over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. My smartboard's misaligned a little bit. But now I'm actually going to go up here. I'm going to get a line and see if I can't try to line those up as best as I can. Let me put that back down. Let me see if I can move this over. That's not bad for this one. Let's do the next line. We have a 0 and a negative 1. Again, our slope is the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. Let's try to draw a line again. I'll fix it up in a second. We'll move this over. I need to probably move this one over a little bit to get it lined up. That's looking pretty good for our example anyways. We can describe the relationship between these two lines that they are parallel. What is the slope of each of these lines? Well, we noticed that they both had a slope of 5. I'm going to stop there with the math lesson for a moment. So what I do with this in my classroom is my students now have their actual lesson, the lesson that I would give them. I find that these videos generally take about 10 or 15 minutes to make, and they're generally about 10 or 15 minutes long. The reason with that is I rarely ever do 2 takes. Only if I really mess something up will I do 2 takes. I think it's important that we show an authenticity, that we make mistakes once in a while and it's in there and we correct it. That's a part of our learning. I also think part of the structuring and organizing and managing of project-based learning, I can't make perfect videos. I don't have the time to make perfect videos. It would take me hours to get this video to be perfect. So I am happy to have a good video, a video that has my lesson in it. So now the way the students will use this is they will get their handout, they get their headsets or their device, they can sit on a chair, they can sit at their desk, they can sit on the floor, they can still look at the board, they can watch the video however they wish. They fill the video in, they have their lesson. And if I look at the rest of these, I think the rest of it's filled in, or most of it's filled in. And we have a little note up here in this section. So you can see we've got a fairly short note here. We're looking at some of these terms. And I also give them some questions here for us to do. I think even on the next video, we have some more questions. This is the next lesson. And again, we keep looking at it and we see different things we have to do. I think on this one, a student had a question about, hey, here's my equation. What is my slope? What is my y-intercept? They wanted to review it. So I inserted a slide here to review it. And I just did a little bit of review with what we did. A little review with fractions. And some more review with fractions. What we're seeing is that with this tool, with Smart Notebook, I can screen capture. I can capture everything that I need to do. And again, not sure if you're going to be seeing this recording window in the video. However, I want you to know that as soon as I stop this, I have the option of saving it. I can save it to a local hard drive, I can save it to a network drive, or I can then take this video and I can post it on YouTube. If you want to see further examples of how I have flipped some of my math lessons using my smartboard, I'll put a link to some of them in the description. So one of the key things that I want us to look at here in this video for today is that we can use our smartboard, our interactive whiteboard, to help support our learners because they now have this lesson that they can access anytime, anywhere if I put it on YouTube or I put it online somewhere. They've got constant access to my lesson, the very lesson that we did in class. They can use as a resource. We can also use this tool to help me, the educator, manage and structure my project-based learning lessons. And I think that for me is the key part. How do I help my students manage and structure their learning? One of the misconceptions about project-based learning is that students will just go figure it out. So they will just go and figure it out. And that's a pretty big misconception. It's not true. The teacher needs to structure the learning. And actually, I spend much more time on the structure piece than I ever did before I started doing project-based learning. So the two things about this and about flipping a lesson and about using perhaps your interactive whiteboard software to do it, they have access to my stuff. They have access to the lesson that they actually had in class or at home. There's also the structure that they can use, that I can use by giving them the handout and by having the exact handout on the screen and as part of the video that they need. I want to wrap up this video with saying This is probably one of the easiest ways that I have ever used, one of the easiest tools that I have used to actually record a video with my work on there that students can do. In another video, we're going to look at Screencast-O-Matic. Screencast-O-Matic is used for screen capturing. It's not as interactive as this because I do not have access to my smartboard to go along with it. But I still think this is one of the best tools that I can use to help structure my projects for my students, and especially the more detailed lessons that they need to have within their project.